and the Buccaneers. Today, in a surprising move, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers hire the former Raiders coach, coming to terms on a 5-year contract. The news came as a bit of a surprise since Gruden, the Bucs, and the Raiders couldn't agree on an earlier deal. Plus, the Bucs were most recently negotiating with Niners coach Steve Mariucci. The 38-year-old Gruden, the NFL's youngest head coach, had a 40-28 record in 4 seasons with the Silver and Black. And after becoming the laughingstock of the NFL for the past 5 weeks, the Bucs may get the last laugh. They get the high-profile offensive-minded coach they were looking for ever since firing Tony Dungy back on January 14th. Well, Gruden took over as the coach of the Raiders back in '98. The Buccaneers actually outscored the Raiders that season. But while Oakland's points per game have steadily increased in each of Gruden's seasons, Tampa Bay has languished near the bottom of the league in nearly every offensive category since. The scoring-challenged Bucs could use a boost in their offense, and Gruden just might be the man to help them get there and get to where they want to be.
Send our viewers live to Oakland. Al Davis is at the microphone. Let's listen in on his live news conference.
And he entered into an agreement which will be further described later with Tampa early this morning, I guess that would be called. The Raiders received in compensation a first in 2002 and a second-round draft choice in 2002. In addition, we received a first-round draft choice in 2003. In addition, we received a second-round draft choice in 2004. In addition to that, we received $8 million for further compensation. You all have heard many, many stories about what has been transpiring over the last few weeks, and the best person to explain it is someone who's intimately involved in the details of it. And at this time, the person who is intimate, Mr. Al Davis, will explain what transpired.
Following the New England game, in which we were all devastated based on the outcome of the game and the way the outcome became reality, we came home, and I guess it was a Tuesday morning after the game that Coach Jon was in a press conference with you people. He was asked several questions about being a lame duck coach and about a new contract. And at that time, Jon had said, "I'll be a lame duck coach. There's no renegotiation on a new contract." And I took it for what it was when I heard about it, just Jon speaking and answering questions from the press. It was the next night that Bob Lamont, who represents Jon, said that he speaks for Jon, and Jon will, in essence, play out his option and not sign a contract after the year he plays out his option. And I didn't give it much credence, still don't give it much credence. And when I met with Jon and talked to Jon several times, not one word about that came up, because during the season, we had offered Jon a 3-year extension for $9.5 million, which was quite an amount at that time, and that was before the Spurrier signing that changed a lot of the thinking of a lot of people. And Jon at that time was working with Bruce, and he can explain that to you, and Lamont was working with Bruce, and I thought we were very close to an agreement. When we lost the Denver game, again, all of us became a little concerned, beside the Notre Dame rumors, the Florida rumors, and that we're working on a contract that we're not paying attention to what we got to do to try to get to the Super Bowl and win the game. And so Jon and Bruce, who are very close, Bruce reported to me that Jon said, "Let's hold it right now," and I was happy about that. "We'll get it after the season. You and I will work it out, Bruce." And so that's where we left it. And just before the New England game, something else happened that changed the whole territory of what was going on, and that was when my good friend Bill Parcells turned down the Tampa job. And I think he turned it down on Friday before our game, which was against New England on Saturday night. And I thought it was something new in the equation, and we found out that right after the game, it was something new in the equation, that they were interested in Jon Gruden, and the agent for Jon Gruden certainly makes himself known, and he had pushed the thing with the Tampa people. Approximately a week before the Super Bowl, I got a call from Rich McKay in my office, and I told the girls that I would get back to him. When I got to the Super Bowl, he called me at my hotel and asked, could he talk to Jon Gruden? Now, by law, by rule, we're really not even supposed to do that in our league, but I said no. No, I don't want you talking to him. He's our coach, and he's going to play out his option, and I laughed, and I said, we'll take the consequences, but he's our coach. He said, okay, I accept that. On Sunday morning before the Super Bowl game, he was leaving New Orleans early, and he called me one more time, and he said, is there any way that we can change your mind on Jon Gruden? And I said to him that, listen, I'll give you some things. It's going to be prohibitive, but if you're willing to do this, I'll consider taking this to our people and make a determination if we want to let you talk to Jon. And so I gave him some draft choice demands, if that's the right word, and some financial demands. He said he couldn't do it. It's impossible. He said, what about the Parcells deal? I said, this is not Parcells. I don't want to get into the Parcells deal, and I want to negotiate. I told you, if you'll meet it, I might take it into consideration to give you an opportunity to talk to Jon. So they left me alone till about Wednesday of the week after the Super Bowl, when Joel Glazer, the owner's son, who I know quite well, I know the owner quite well, and I make this point to you. There are so many stories out there that I have talked to Malcolm Glazer. I have not talked to Malcolm Glazer in 6 months, if that makes sense. I have not talked to Malcolm Glazer in 6 months. One guy, I don't know where he comes from half the time, made a statement that I am very close to George Steinbrenner, which I am, but that Steinbrenner and I were talking about Joe Torre, who's a very close friend of mine, playing out his option. I mean, coaching as a, what we call, with no time left on his contract, and that I like that kind of thing. I mean, that's just totally ridiculous, but in any event, Joel called and said, can we get a shot to talk to Jon Gruden? Now, I want you to know, I don't know what's going behind the scenes. I don't know if Bob Lamont is pushing them, and I don't know if Jon is pushing Bob Lamont. I would doubt it, to keep working on me. And I said, look, I gave Rich McKay a price that we would have to even consider it. If you want to do that, you let me know. And we went over the price again, because he had never talked to me. It was always Rich McKay, and they had, by that time, taken Rich McKay out of the equation and actually fired him. So he said, no, we couldn't do that. In any event, on Friday, the Mariucci story broke, and quite frankly, I thought that Steve would go knowing that the Niners want him to go. I thought sure that there would be an opportunity for him in Tampa Bay, and that it would be good for him, because he's a very good coach. And last night, and I thought nothing of it. Saturday, they were meeting. Sunday, they were meeting. Last night at 10 o'clock at my home, and believe me, it was shocking, Joel Glazer called me from the Regent Beverly Wilshire in Los Angeles. They were there for some thing with some function with their whole family. And he said, look, we're real close with Steve Mariucci. I want to make one more shot at Jon Gruden. I said, there are no more shots, Joel. I told you what it is. I don't want to negotiate. I don't want to bargain. He said, look, if we do this and that, it's about it, isn't it? I said, yeah, that's about it, isn't it? He said, well, will you take it up? Will you take a look at it? I said, look, and this is about 10 o'clock, and exactly 10 was when he called. And this now is about 10:30. I said, okay, I'll talk to our people. I talked to Ms. Trask to get the point of view from administration. I talked naturally to Bruce, and I talked to one or two of our scouts just to get a feel of where the draft is headed, what's going on out there in free agency. And we had known by that time that Houston would not pick up any of our players in the expansion draft. They had assured us of that. And I got back to Joel and I said, look, if you're interested in this, I'm interested in it, and we'll let you talk to Jon, provided I talk to Jon first. And I want from you a document that states that we get the first and second round pick in the year 2002. We get the first pick in the year 2003. We get the second pick in the year 2004. That's 4 draft choices, 2 1s and 2 2s. And when you look at it over a 3-year period, it gives us 10 picks in the first 2 rounds based on our own draft choices and the draft choices we got from them. And he faxed to me that, and he faxed to me the amount of money in cash that they would owe us over a period of 3 years. And we had 2 or 3 other things that we agreed upon, man to man, relative to coaches and things like that. And I said, but I've got to do one other thing first. I got to talk to Jon. Jon's going to make the decision. If Jon wants to go, I'm going to let him go as long as you're willing to pay this price. So I got a hold of Jon on the phone. It was about midnight, and Jon and I had talked several times in the past 2 to 3 weeks, mostly about football, but also about his dream and what he wanted to do. And I also told Jon, and this is true, that had he come to me and had he wanted to go to Notre Dame, I would have let him go to Notre Dame. If that was his life stream and really something that he wanted for he and his family, and you only get these chances once in a lifetime, I would have gone along with it. He said to me, no, he didn't want that. He wants pro football. I said, do you want Tampa Bay? He said, look, my family lives there. I grew up there. My father worked there. My father was a coach there. My father was a scout there. And he brought up some stories that I didn't even know, that the coach who let his father go was Ray Perkins. When Jon became the head coach for the Raiders, our offensive coordinator was Ray Perkins, and he let Ray Perkins go. So it all comes back. They all, but in any event, and I don't know if this is interesting to you, but I'm just going to give you the story. At about 12:30, 1 o'clock, I talked to Jon, and Jon said he'd like to talk to Joel Glazer. And I said to him that I'm going to let you make this decision. And he seemed to know a little bit about it, and talked to Joel Glazer. And I was called by Glazer about a half hour later, and I can say that the documents passed from us to him and him to us at about 2:30 in the morning. That's when the deal was done. And I said to him, I had some questions relative to what was going to happen with Steve and those kind of things, and he said he'll handle that. And that's the story. Jon called me at about 2:30, 3 o'clock, and we said all the right things. We've always had a good relationship, and I was proud of the fact that he came on so strong as a coach and as a charismatic character throughout the world or global. And but I felt if this is what he wanted to do, if he wanted to go home, we could live with it based on the compensation that they were giving to us. That is the story. About 8 o'clock this morning, Joel called me and said, how are we going to handle this from a press standpoint, an announcement standpoint? And I had already checked with Bruce. Bruce had given me some ideas. Ms. Trask gave me some ideas, and we were ready to do it. And I said, have you talked to Steve? And he said, I just got done talking to Steve and told him we're going to go in a different direction. And that is the story of Jon Gruden going to Tampa Bay. And John, Bruce did all the negotiations. I just want to make this point. A lot of people have used the word authority. John has never wanted authority over the personnel. John has hired all his own coaches other than 2. And when he first got here, we had a couple coaches from the old staff who were under contract, but the only 2 I've asked John to keep. And I've always said to him, if they don't fit what you want, we'll move them into other parts of our organization, and that's Fred Blitnikoff and Willie Brown. That is it. And Bruce can tell you about authorities and things like that, and then, of course, we'll answer questions or whatever you might want to talk about.
But as far as the authority issue, you know, those of you who know John pretty well, it really wasn't an issue because we were doing so well. And
Well, there you heard it. Raiders owner Al Davis discussing the process by which Jon Gruden is leaving Oakland and now going to become the head coach of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, a 5-year.
And we want to introduce Jon Gruden, our new head coach. I'd like to say thank you very much. I woke up this morning. I had no idea how I got here, but I would like to thank Mr. Glazier and obviously Brian and Joel Glazier. I'd like to help them. Their help through Bob Lamont, my agent, for finding a way to get me here in Tampa, Florida. I'd just like to open today and say some very simple things. Number one, I have great respect for the vision of the Glazier family and what they've done for this franchise since they've been at Tampa. And I have a high amount of respect for the current status of our football team here in Tampa. They're a highly competitive football team, some inspiring characters already here in Tampa. I look forward to working with the group of players that we have and doing everything within my power to put a great coaching staff together and to take this franchise to another level. But I'll be happy to answer any questions that I can. And again, just quite simply, I'm thrilled to be here. And all I can guarantee is a lot of hard work and effort in trying to put the Tampa Bay Buccaneers into championship form. Thank you very much.
About your staff. Obviously, you have a lot of work to do now. This has been a month that the football team has been without a head coach, and that puts you a little bit behind the curve. Do you intend on bringing some of your staff from Oakland, and what would you like to see happen with Rich McKay? Obviously, there's a long history there with your dad, his dad, and you and Rich. So what would you like to see happen on those two fronts?
Those are the two big questions right now that I've got to get answered. Number one, with Rich McKay, he's distinguished himself as a top-flight football man here in Tampa. I'm eager to see Rich McKay back with us. I have a high regard for him. I look forward to working with him. I just expect the situation to resolve itself quickly. In regards to the coaching staff, that's something that I'm going to take my time on. We've got some defensive coaches that are currently under contract. We've got some offensive coaches that are currently under contract. Monty Kiffin is a guy that I go way back with. I'm going to do everything I can do to keep Monty Kiffin here. And I'm looking forward to meeting the rest of the defensive coaches. They've done a tremendous job here, and I'll do that starting sometime later today. But we're going to find the best teachers, the most inspiring men that we can to stimulate our football team and encourage them to take their games to new personal highs.
In with a new offensive system, how long do you think it's going to take for the players to feel comfortable in it where they can just work smoothly on the field?
Well, it depends on the player. You know, I've seen guys, with the way football is today, you got to be a quick study in the NFL today. You know, there's not 7 or 8 or 9 year combinations of players anymore. We feel like our system is user-friendly. But we'll wait and see. It depends on the energy put in by our football team. And I'm confident that we're going to have a lot of guys that are excited about what we're asking them to do. And I believe it'll be a quick process.
Coach, how nice is it going to be to work with a hands-off ownership group that just lets you coach as opposed to what you had in Oakland?
I'm just going to coach anyhow, just so everybody knows. I don't care how the owner works. You know, Mr. Glazier, just had an opportunity to have lunch with him and meet him for the very first time. But I'm not shy. I don't have thin skin. I'm going to coach with the style that I've always coached with. And I welcome any input I can get from the ownership. That's obvious.
How long did it take you to make up your mind? What were some of the factors involved in the decision to come here?
There's no decision involved, really. I got a phone call late from Al Davis. He explained the possible situation that I was in. I want to be with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers for a lot of reasons. Number one, I'm from here. I've got roots here. I understand how this profession works. There's some decisions that are made easier than others, but I wanted to be here for some time, and the decision was easy.
Jon, I know you haven't had a chance to really study the team in detail, but what are some of the assets of this team and some of the shortcomings as you take over as head coach?
Well, it's a very good football team in all areas. There have been hard knocks against the offensive group, but I've had a chance to study Tampa Bay as a football coach in another time zone. This is a very dedicated crowd here, guys that compete. They're going to be in every football game. They've got a good, solid kicker in Grammatica. They play great team defense here. They run to the football. They're great tacklers. And I think on offense, I think they've got some exciting people here. With Keyshawn Johnson and Warwick Dunn, Mark Allstott, they've got the makings of an outstanding offensive line. What all that means doesn't matter very much right now. We've got to take it to the bank and prove what we can do between the lines when the season starts.
Jon, do you feel handicapped by the compensation that the team gave up to you? Could that be a problem down the line?
I don't look at that as a serious detriment. Obviously, when you lose draft picks, particularly first and second rounders, you've got to be honest and say that certainly those are 4 players that could have potentially helped our team. But there's a lot of vehicles to improve your football team in modern day football with free agency. And there'll be a lot of guys available every June. There's just a lot of ways to get better.
Jon, this happened so quick, you didn't really get to say any goodbye to the Bay Area. Is there anything you want to say to the Raider Nation, so to speak, and your experience in Oakland?
Well, I think my experience there, I think they know how much I appreciated the support that they gave me, and I think they know that I'm a very simple-minded coach, and I've got a new challenge, and so do they, and I'm going to be relentless, and I'm sure they will be also.
How important is your relationship with the quarterback?
Very important. It'll be one of the most important things that I endure here in the next 6 to 8 weeks. You know, I'm looking forward to meeting Brad Johnson and Sean King. I'm looking forward to finding more quarterbacks that can come in here and compete. It'll be a position that we scrutinize very carefully, and we'll work to cultivate as many arms as we can in our program here.
Hiring an offensive coordinator, or are we looking at the offensive coordinator?
I'm going to coach the quarterbacks and call the plays. That's what I love probably most about being in this league. I enjoy the strategy. I enjoy the communication with the quarterback. Eventually, there might be an offensive coordinator, but I'm going to be as creative as I can be with the coaching staff. I'm going to see who's available. I'm not just going to start naming people to different titles without doing a lot of careful research.
Coach, you've been on the fast track to success really since you were a grad assistant at UAT with Darryl Dickey and Jack Sells. Did you think eventually that it would come to a point like this in your career?
Well, you got to dream. You know, you got to have big dreams, man. Heck yeah. I was, you know, I remember when I was 15, 16 years old walking down the street. I was the MVP of every Super Bowl ever played. You know, I've had big dreams all along. I've been very fortunate to be around good people and some great players. And the most stimulating thing about being in the NFL is the players. And we've got some here. I look forward to making some new relationships with them and competing with these guys.
You talked about the characters. You talked about the dream from it might be a possibility to where it looked like it wasn't going to happen, and then all of a sudden it happened.
Well, I had a great job in Oakland. We won some games there. I was fully content to continue to work with the Oakland Raiders and hopefully take our team further into playoffs. There have been a lot of speculation about different jobs over the last 3 or 4 weeks. Never really distracted me very much because there's been a lot of speculation since I got to Oakland. But when I woke up and found out that I was coming back to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, where I'm from, it's very exciting for me.
Can you talk about your offensive philosophy, and will it change a little bit depending on the players that the Bucs have? And also, Warrick Dunn is a free agent. Are you going to try to make a push to keep him and Mike Allstott?
Well, it's my first day on the job. You know, you're asking some tough questions, man. Our philosophy is very simple. Our philosophy is to do whatever we have to do to win. If we can run the ball every single play, if we feel like a defense is vulnerable, we'll do that. But we like to be versatile. We like to be creative. We like to distribute the ball evenly, some balanced in terms of our attack. A lot of personnel groupings. There are some plays and formations maybe that we'll try and mix up on a weekly basis. I think it's a fun offense, honestly. And to have a guy like Warrick Dunn that can line up in any eligible position and make plays are certainly the kind of guys that I get excited about. And Warrick Dunn is a young man that I'm looking forward to meeting, and hopefully we can work out his return.
You have your philosophy on offense. The defense here has been a mainstay for a while. Do you plan on letting Monty keep that scheme in, or do you plan to tinker with that also?
Well, the big thing with Monty is, you know, he never stays the same. I went by the facility today. It's February the 20th. He's in there with his defensive staff finding new wrinkles. I think one of the great things that Tampa has done over the last 5 or 6 years is draft players that fit this system. And at the same time, Monty has really done a great job staying ahead of the posse and tinkering with it, adding new wrinkles that have really made it very, very effective. But I look forward to spending some time with Monty, and we'll see where we go from there.
Coach, your family's obviously very happy to have you here. Your mother and father are happy to have you. Your brother just down the road in I-4. Can you talk a little bit about your family ties here, and is there any possibility you might bring Jay into the staff?
Well, I've been trying to get Jay on the same staff that I've been on for quite some time. He's still a very good professional quarterback. He's a good football coach in his own right, and he'll make a decision, I'm sure, on what he wants to do with his future here in the next few days. But he knows that I want him in Tampa. But obviously it means a great deal to my family that I'm back home. It means a great deal to me. And that's a silver lining in this whole thing. But the most important thing is to win football games. Our players, I believe the Tampa Bay Buccaneer football team could care less how I got here. They could care less who I know that lives in this area. I think they want some straight organization and direction in terms of what we have to do to improve our football team, and that's what I'm really eager to get started on.
Talk about the questions and the characters on this team. You talked about the characters.
Not that good, sorry.
Talk about the characters on this team, and there have been some questions about how everybody gets along. There's a perception that you're not going to put up with that. Can you talk about how you'll deal with that, and would you be willing to trade some of your established players to get those draft picks back?
Well, you know what, this is a very emotional business. You know, we were accused in Oakland of having sideline shenanigans with Rich Gannon and various other players. This is an emotional game played by emotional men, very physical sport. And I'm not going to have a no yelling sign on our sideline. I guarantee you that. We're going to have our scouts will go all over the country, and we're looking for players that are very emotional men and guys that love this game that will do anything to win. And, you know, that's one thing I greatly admire about the Tampa Bay Buccaneer football team at this present state. These guys compete hard. And I'll get to know these guys personally. They'll get to know me, and we'll make any arrangements that need to be made later.
You talked about Jay and getting back to him. Are you saying you have offered him a job? And if so, can you tell us what it is?
No, I just told Jay I'm very, very interested in hiring him. And I've told Jay that repeatedly over the last, I don't know, 6 or 7 years. But this whole staff acquisition thing will take care of itself. We've got to see who's available, and we will. But there are some very particular things you got to be aware of. You're not allowed to tamper with coaches. It's very difficult to acquire talent in terms of coaches. A lot of these guys have contractual obligations, and you can't just pick up the phone and call them because it is a league violation.
Talking about your scouting staff, are you planning to meet with Rustin Webster and the rest of the scouts now to tell them your philosophy and how you want them to grade players in the near future?
Yeah, absolutely. We're going to work together here, and I think that's one of the great things that Tampa Bay has done here in the last 6 or 7 years. I realize and respect the shoes that I have to fill. Tony Dungy was a great coach here, and I believe they had a great working relationship between the scouts and the coaching staff. That's something that I believe is very important also. The criteria that we're looking for might change, and that's something that we've got to obviously address quickly.
If it could not be worked out with Rich McKay, would you be willing to also fill the role as general manager, or is that out of the question?
I don't want to speculate on that. I'm confident that everything is going to work out with Rich. I'm mentally getting myself prepared to coach the football team and really concentrate on that aspect of football. But I'm really looking forward to working with Rich McKay, and I'm confident it'll work itself out.
What were your impressions with the coaching search that transpired in this last 30 days with the Buccaneers? And do you feel you have any pressure on you to restore the image of this team?
Well, there's always pressure. You know, that's a great thing about being in the NFL, the pressure, the feeling of pressure. You know, you either feel pressure or you apply pressure. And hopefully, with the group of players that we have assembled here, we're going to be able to apply a lot of pressure to the other team. But, you know, pressure is what you look at it as.
You have final authority on personnel issues?
As far as I know, you know.
Serious answer, John?
At one
Yes.
buck, the training facility at One Buck is the same one that your dad stomped around in several years ago. Yet there's $12 million sitting in a community investment fund tax account from the community to build a new training facility. How important is it for you to have new facilities for your players to be able to expand their game on the field?
Well, it's very important. I think as you look around the NFL and you see some of the creative facilities that are being put together, it's impressive. I've talked with Joel and Brian Glazier about a new facility for the Buccaneers. It's easier for a coach to say, let's get a facility than it really is. There's a lot of difficulties in getting land, the zoning ordinances and things of that nature are very difficult. But I've been told that we will indeed have a brand new facility that is state-of-the-art. Like our stadium, I think we've proven to the football world how we look at facilities with a state-of-the-art, custom-made football stadium, and I'm confident we'll have our own individual facility as soon as possible.
Coach, do you plan on meeting with the team in the near future and kind of giving them their marching orders?
Not yet. I think the big thing right now is, number one, let's hire our own coaching staff, and let's direct our staff accordingly. Let's all get on the same page. I'd like to meet the people in the building. We've got to prepare for the Combine in Indianapolis, organize our off-season program. When are the mini camps? We're allowed to have 3. And, you know, when I see these guys starting during the off-season program, it'll be an appropriate time to let them know a little bit about Jon Gruden and his vision of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
John, can you take us back emotionally from when you first got the phone call from Al Davis to the time it was, quote, a done deal? What was going through your mind?
It was about 2 o'clock in the morning, so I wasn't sure in the morning if it was a dream or a reality, you know. But honestly, it was a shocking turn of events. You know, I went to the Golden State Warrior Atlanta Hawk basketball game with my kids. I went to bed around 10:30, 11 o'clock, and at 4 o'clock the next morning, I was headed to Tampa Bay, and I was very excited. And it was a night that I'll never forget, and I look forward to make the most of this opportunity.
Did it actually sink in then you're actually the Bucs coach?
Yeah, absolutely. It was just my wife and I, and you know, we had a chance to sit down privately and just talk about how excited we were to come here, and now it's a matter of making the most of this opportunity.
John, is the talent here to go to a Super Bowl?
You know what? I've seen Tampa Bay play. I've competed against the Buccaneers as a coach. I'm not going to make a lot of predictions at this time until I get a chance to see it on the field for myself. I'm not going to make a lot of bold predictions at this time. I'll just say that I'm confident that we do have a lot of talented individuals on our football team.
Last question. The Buccaneers, John, make a full transition to your philosophy as having a true West Coast offense, or you have other intentions?
Well, anybody that has seen the offenses that I've been a part of in the last 7 or 8 years knows it's not a West Coast offense. I see the West Coast offense as a split back, drop, you know, type of system. You know, we're not like the San Francisco 49ers of 1981 or 82. There's certain variables in our offense that I'm sure have West Coast roots, but we're going to be as creative as we can be to make first downs, score touchdowns, and win football games, and people can call it whatever they want. All right? Thanks a lot. I look forward to meeting a lot of you personally. Thank you.
Jon Gruden, the seventh head coach of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, he talked about a variety of things. One of the most interesting things discussed, perhaps, was the fact that he really plans to not only keep but utilize Warrick Dunn as a big part of his offense. In fact, when he was talking about the running backs, he actually misidentified Mike Allstott by calling him Mark Allstott, and then talked at length about having Warrick Dunn a big part of his team. And he said he's very excited about having Warrick Dunn around. So that's very interesting. Warrick, as we all know, is a free agent as of right now, so it would entail re-signing Warrick Dunn to a new contract. And any of you that followed Warrick last year knows that he was very unhappy with the way he was utilized in the Buccaneers offense. Jon Gruden also, towards the tail end of his news conference, said what they run is not a true West Coast offense. He had talked a lot about in the past about how he likes to run the ball and pass the ball, and the true West Coast system is a wide open passing attack. They use 4 wide receivers frequently. We have some other information to show you right now on Jon Gruden, where he has been, what he has done. Really a very impressive person, just 38 years old already, has 4 years coaching experience in the NFL. Jon Gruden knows certainly what it takes to win at this level. Here's a list at where he's been, what he has done. We also have for you a look at his career record, and it's really quite impressive. He started out his first couple of seasons with back-to-back 8-8 records, and then it was 12-4, and last year 10-6. The offense, and we've decided we'd compare it to what the Bucs have done in the past season. The Raiders 7th overall. The Buccaneers finished 27th in total offense. Passing offense, look at there. The Raiders really sling the ball around. 4th rated passing offense in the NFL last year. The Bucs were 16th. The rushing offense, not really spectacular, but it should be pointed out that his lead running back from 2000, Tyrone Wheatley, was injured last year, so he had to get it done with Band-Aid players, and I'm sure that probably took a little bit away from his ability to do what he wanted to do. Scoring offense, and that's the key stat. He will put points on the board here for the Buccaneers, and that really cannot be understated, because the Bucs really have struggled in that area over the past, really, Tony Dungy era. Tony often said, hey, if I could, I'd figure out a way to win 1-0, and that would be just fine with Tony Dungy. But obviously, the style of Jon Gruden is much different. You're looking at live pictures now of the Glazer family, and I have to tell you that while Jon Gruden was addressing the media, I couldn't help but notice the smiles on the Glazer brothers' faces. Even Malcolm, just very, they were kind of like kids at Christmas opening a new present. They were tickled as could be to be announcing Jon Gruden as his new head coach. Right now, we're going to show you some of the emotions on the sidelines from Jon Gruden. He talked a little bit that he is a very emotional coach, and we'll replay that for you now.
Well, you know what? This is a very emotional business. You know, we were accused in Oakland of having sideline shenanigans with Rich Gannon and various other players. This is an emotional game played by emotional men, very physical sport. And I'm not going to have a no yelling sign on our sideline. I guarantee you that. We're going to have our scouts will go all over the country, and we're looking for players that are very emotional men and guys that love this game that will do anything to win. And, you know, that's one thing I greatly admire about the Tampa Bay Buccaneer football team at this present state. These guys compete hard. And I'll get to know these guys personally. They'll get to know me, and we'll make any arrangements that need to be made later.
All right, Jon Gruden is he also, it should be pointed out, showed that he's got quite a sense of humor in dealing with the media today. He's very relaxed in doing that, and that's something that is rare for a guy really with so little coaching experience at just 38 years of age. He handles this thing like he's been around for 10, 15 years, and I think at this point, that's one of the impressive things about his personality. He's not at all intimidated. The highlight of the news conference for me was when he was asked if he was going to enjoy now working for the Glazers, who presumably are hands-off owners, as compared to what he was dealing with in Oakland with Al Davis. And he said he's not at all worried about that. He's going to coach the football team. He will not be influenced by anything Malcolm or the brothers have to say. Marty and Brendan, your impressions on the news conference?
Well, that's interesting, because one of the first things he said, Jay, was to praise Malcolm and Brian and Joel, when in fact he took this job without ever having met them personally. Is that unusual in your experience?
Well, it is unusual, but I think in this particular situation, and this was something that Jon Gruden addressed early in the news conference, he was so excited about the opportunity to take this particular coaching job and the opportunity to come home and be in the same hometown as his parents, and of course he grew up here. I think that far outweighed anything else. And Brendan and Marty, it should also be pointed out that in this business, a very public business, your reputation certainly precedes you as a person. You can go around in NFL circles and you can talk to anybody about Jon Gruden, and of course you're going to know all you need to know just about what it is that they have to say, because Jon Gruden, anybody in the NFL knows exactly what Jon Gruden is all about, and I think it goes the other way as well. Jon Gruden knows the reputation of the Glazers. He had phone conversations with them, but that was it. So yeah, a little bit bizarre and a little out of the ordinary, but you know, again, I think it speaks volumes for how badly he wants to be here, and that's why it's a perfect fit.
He was so excited to take the job, he forgot to ask how much he was getting paid, right?
Well, no, Marty.
Okay,
no, I don't think that was overlooked.
Yeah, I didn't think so. It's interesting that he said that today was the first time he met them.
That's Mark Allstott we're looking at there now.
Well, yeah, there you go, Brendan. And, you know, I was sitting just a couple of rows behind Mike Allstott, and I'm sure it had to be an uncomfortable situation for him. In fact, he was sitting next to Dave Moore, and as soon as Jon Gruden said Mark Allstott, Dave Moore sticks his elbow in his ribs, and he starts laughing at him, saying, like, he doesn't even know your first name. But we don't want to read anything into that, Brendan and Marty.
Honest mistake.
You know, easy slip of the tongue.
Jay, let me ask you, this was something that we were all wondering about. I take it, since we did not have a shot of him, Rich McKay was not at this press conference. Is that right?
Well, we reported exclusively last night at 11 o'clock that Rich McKay would not be at today's news conference, and indeed, he was nowhere to be seen. I talked to the Bucs PR representatives before the news conference began, and basically they told me, yeah, you were right last night. He's not going to be here.
So what does that mean? Did the Glazers, did Jon Gruden, did the three of them get together this morning and talk?
Jon Gruden was planning to speak with Rich McKay. He did not get that opportunity. However, he did say in the news conference that he's very much looking forward to working with and keeping Rich McKay on the Buccaneers staff, and here's more on that.
Like to see happen on those two fronts?
Well, those are the two big questions right now that have got to get answered. Number one, with Rich McKay, he's distinguished himself as a top-flight football man here in Tampa. I'm eager to see Rich McKay back with us. I have a high regard for him. I look forward to working with him. I just expect this situation to resolve itself quickly. In regards to the coaching staff, that's something that I'm going to take my time on. We've got some defensive coaches that are currently under contract. We've got some offensive coaches that are currently under contract. Monty Kiffin is a guy that I go way back with. I'm going to do everything I can do to keep Monty Kiffin here. And I'm looking forward to meeting the rest of the defensive coaches. They've done a tremendous job here, and I'll do that starting sometime later today. But we're going to find the best teachers, the most inspiring men that we can to stimulate our football team and encourage them to take their games to new personal highs.
All right, now Jon Gruden not having an opportunity to meet with Rich McKay yet. However, McKay will meet with the Glazers later this afternoon, and judging from everything we heard here, it's obvious that Gruden at least wants to keep Rich McKay around. What the Glazers want to do with him at this point remains to be seen. Last night we caught up with the Glazers at the airport, and really they dodged the issue. They didn't want to talk about Rich McKay. In fact, they flatly said at the end of it, we don't want to talk about that right now. We're going to work on that in the next couple of days, and even mention that it could go into next week. But they did end their comments by saying, we're just excited to have Jon Gruden here. And I think right now that sums up their emotions. They'd probably like to keep Rich McKay around if Jon wants him here. You're looking at a live picture now of Jim Gruden, and he, of course, is the father of Jon. And interestingly enough, he was a running backs coach with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers back in the 80s. So, you know, this really is a family tradition. Jim Gruden coached the Bucs running backs in the 80s, and of course Jay Gruden quarterbacked the Tampa Bay Storm to 4 Arena League titles in the 90s. And now, as we move into 2002, it's Jon's turn to try to see what he can do here in Tampa Bay as far as football is concerned. Very excited. As you know, he's a very passionate guy, very emotional guy, where he said there's going to be no yelling signs on the sidelines. I think that probably got the biggest snicker out of the media here this afternoon. Jon did talk in the news conference about how he's desperate to bring his brother Jay on staff. In fact, he said he's offered Jay a job before, tried to get him on staff, hasn't been able to do that. We heard from Jay yesterday saying, yeah, he would love to be on staff. So at this point, it's nothing more than a formality. You can expect to see Jay Gruden on Jon's coaching staff, and here's Jon on that.
You'd like to bring Jay into the staff?
Well, I've been trying to get Jay on the same staff that I've been on for quite some time. He's still a very good professional quarterback. He's a good football coach in his own right, and he'll make a decision, I'm sure, on what he wants to do with his future here in the next few days. But he knows that I want him in Tampa. But obviously it means a great deal to my family that I'm back home. It means a great deal to me. And that's a silver lining in this whole thing. But the most important thing is to win football games. Our players, I believe the Tampa Bay Buccaneer football team could care less how I got here. They could care less who I know that lives in this area. I think they want some straight organization and direction in terms of what we have to do to improve our football team, and that's what I'm really eager to get started on.
All right, Jon Gruden talking about what he plans to do to get this thing going. Now we're joined by the man we just showed you live pictures of, Jim Gruden, father of Jon. Boy, this has to be very exciting for you. A, your son is taking a job in your hometown. You're going to be reunited with that, but also just the roots and everything else. It's got to be a great time for you.
Yeah, it really doesn't hit home until I saw these cameras here today and saw him up at the podium answering all these questions. It's hard to believe that it's really happened, that it's over with now, and he's really a Buccaneer. It's really amazing.
Now, he talked about the possibility of bringing Jay to coach here, and it sounds like that's nothing more than a formality at this point, and that Jay will be here. That's got to be even more exciting for you.
Well, I don't know if that's a formality. Jay's got his own mind, too, and he's kind of been committed to the Predators for the last 4 years and has given them a lot of energy. I know that Jon wants him. I know that Jay eventually wants to work with him, but I don't know if it's going to happen right now. You have to talk to Jay on that, baby. But if they did, it would be a great thrill for me to have them both together.
When you look at the Buccaneers and where they have been and what they've done, it's obvious that they were missing the offensive punch. Jon's got a lot of pressure on him now. He's like a rock star, and he's in the fishbowl. Everybody wants to see this Jon Gruden offense.
Well, he was like a rock star in Oakland, believe me. I walked out of a couple of games with him in Oakland, and it was unbelievable. But like he said up there, there's pressure in every job in this league. He anticipates the pressure. and he'll do the best job that he can with the personnel that he has. I'm sure he'll do fine.
All right, Jim Gruden, thank you very much for spending time with us. Appreciate it. All right, right now we're going to bring in Mike Schumann. Mike played football here with the Buccaneers. Now he's a sportscaster in San Francisco. He's covered Jon Gruden. Mike, tell us, we're going to love this guy, aren't we?
Well, I tell you, he's